On this episode of ResiWeek, Almo extends credit terms and building a wellness team. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek episode 218, Benefits Not Features.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by
Draper, focused on innovative solutions.
And by
Just Add Power, the global leader in video over IP solutions with systems that give you easy installation, unmatched scalability, and outstanding performance.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matt D. Scott for AVNation.tv, and this week I am pleased to be joined by a whole slew of good friends. We got Mark Chakowski. He is the CEO of Clarity AV. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being here. We have Jamie Briesmeister. She is the CEO/boss lady at Integration Controls out of St. Louis. How are you, ma'am?
Very well, thank you.
Then we have Dan Fulmer. He is the CEO and founder of Full Tech Solutions. How are you, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me.
And last but certainly not least, we have Chad Russell. He is the National Sales Director at Josh AI. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much for being here. Before we jump into our first story of the day, I want to touch on two quick topics. One, if you've missed the interwebs, and this will matter for the people going live, not necessarily so much for when this posts, but we here at AVNation are really excited and super proud to be hosting the Learn From Home Summit that starts tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'm hosting it. Sorry about that. But it's going to be fantastic. We've got Jeremy Burkhart. We got Mitch Klein. We've got Alex from Josh AI. We have Charlie Kindle from C4. We have David Weinstein from Lutron. We have this huge list of people who are doing sessions and breakouts and keynotes starting, as I said, on Tuesday and Wednesday. It essentially will kick off at 8 a.m. Eastern every day, and then at noon with the second keynote and breakouts following that, and then at 8 o'clock at night. So we can get the East Coast, the West Coast, and everybody in between, and, kind of respect that you can't sit in front of a webinar all day long doing stuff. Shout out to Chad for that one. It's an inside joke. No one will get it. Secondly, the second note I wanted to touch on was that Castor Communications has added Crestron Home to their client portfolio. That's a really big deal. If you know anybody from the Castor team, we do a lot of work with them as well. They are a fantastic group of marketers, and this is a big deal. They've been a big partner with Control4 for quite a few years, and this is the first time they've kind of been on the smart home market for a while, and it's great to see that they have joined forces with Crestron. Looking forward to seeing what they can do with them together. It's going to be beautiful. Looking forward to it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's kick back to our first story of the day. This comes to us from Residential Systems. Almo Professional AV has launched the Almo Financial Relief Alliance. Lots of words there, but essentially what they're doing is the alliance is a partnership between their manufacturing vendors, and they're going to offer an additional 30 days of extended credit to qualified resellers. Again, Almo is primarily in the commercial market, but there are a ton of residential dealers that are playing in that resi-commercial space, and they can take advantage of this. It's a really cool thing in these, this kind of unprecedented period where your accounts receivable may not be as great as you normally want it to be, and you still are trying to do business, and you have vendors out there that are looking for their money. And this is a really nice thing to see. So I want to start this off with Mark. This, as I kind of alluded to, this is kind of a big deal in the sense that we very rarely see suppliers modify their terms. Is this something, this is the first one that I've heard of, maybe others are doing it, but I'm unaware of it at the moment. Is this something that you expect to see other vendors kind of follow suit with, or at least start a discussion with some of their suppliers as well as their clients?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be in a variety of ways. I mean, there's so many ways to just to work your financing, because the cash is king. How much terms do you give? How credit worthy are people? How is the business overall? Cash flow is going to be a more important component as we go on for every kind of business, whether you're a manufacturer, integrator, or whatever. And just being on the manufacturer side for years, like I have in the past, I'd spent a lot of time with our credit manager, because customers that I was either trying to get credit for or get extended terms, there's a lot that goes into that. And manufacturers, I believe, with the whole industry and nation, hopefully it will have this help each other kind of mentality. But then it's got to have parameters too, right? Because it's going to come down to, I'm very confident we're going to get through this at a reasonable time, and then we're going to get back to business. And if we did the wrong things financially, that's going to hurt us for years. And I think it could even be to a detriment if you help companies in ways that you're going to hurt your own business. So, I think we're going to see some things that will hopefully help over this relatively short term. So nobody has a crystal ball of when this thing is going to be stabilized. If that's, that's really the best word I could think of. Is that 2 months, 6 months? So I think you're going to see some scenarios where maybe manufacturers will give that 30-day extended terms, like Almo's thinking of. I could also see people saying, okay, you have this much outstanding, 3 separate payments, and let's see where we are. Things like that don't extend it out too far, but give some flexibility to that dealer or integrator to pay their bills and keep doing business, because they probably don't have very much income coming in, because look at the snowball. Are their customers paying them? Right? So they don't have money to pay the manufacturer. So I think, being creative, working to help each other, being smart about it. But the underlying component, if anybody is out there as an integrator asking for certain terms and you owe money, communicate with the person you owe money to. That's the biggest message I can give right now, because when it goes silent, it gets weird. And if people think you're not going to pay them, then other things happen, collections and all the nasty stuff. Communicate, let them know your situation, and try to work something out that way.
Yeah, very good. Jamie, when you see this, it brings to mind for me that this isn't just a integrator to vendor relationship. This is also obviously your accounts payable in your business, but it's also your accounts receivable. How do you go about, balancing, knowing that you may be shut down? Most states and, up here, most provinces are pretty much shut down. There's very little work going on. How do you balance and, to Mark's point, communicate between the people that you owe money to and the people that owe you money?
I think one of the best things that you can do is realize the situation that you're in and plan ahead where you can. We have 2 projects right now that are kind of at that optimal stage where we have a draw request, and for both we had a draw request anyway. And on one, we even advanced the next draw, and that was supply chain management. It was, let's plan to do work in our house. Let's plan to do work in office. By in-house, that's what I mean, like wherever you station your business out of, so that they kind of cash influxed and almost guaranteed that work to be done. They guaranteed their product to show up. They guaranteed that we would be there to do the work. And it's been invaluable during this time. We have had some clients maybe reluctant to pay. Thankfully, not so much, but that's not the case for every integrator. So communication is certainly the best way for the world to work, and certainly for you to get money in your pocket.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Dan, I think one of the biggest things that's going to come out of this in general is, 2 weeks in, for most integrators, you're really starting to see which integrators have cash flow issues, that they did not plan well enough, shall we say, or there's external things that are causing cash flow problems. Coming out of this, how can integrators specifically learn how to manage their cash flow better?
Gosh, well, this is now the second time we've learned this lesson. If you've been in business a while, from 2007 and 8, I think diversification's kind of key. Being pigeonholed to one single market can be dangerous nowadays. And again, we saw that in 07 and 08. We had just happened, and I didn't have a crystal ball. Everybody was like, oh, you were smart. I had no idea it was coming, but we had just happened in 2007 to have borrowed money and lost a full commercial division right before the market had crashed. So luckily and blessedly so, we got through that. But our residential side literally hit a wall and stopped. And it was overnight. I was actually working on a project in the Bahamas, came back here, everybody's sitting around. I'm like, what's going on? And everybody's like, hey, there's nothing going on. It's shut down. And I said, what? And called some builders and they were like, yeah, it literally shut down. So I think being diversified is key. I think Mark and Jamie both brought up good points. One is communicate with your vendors, the people you owe money to, and your clients, the people that owe you money. I think another thing in tough times, and I've seen some other integrators do this across the country as well, is maybe start asking for more money up front.
Yeah.
So that, you're covering all of your cost. Maybe if you're delivering the products, for instance, 100% of the product finance is due as soon as it's delivered, and then you get another draw to do labor, and that helps your cash flow keep going. I think it's fair and equitable to the customer as well, since they're paying for what's actually been delivered. So I think things like that are key. Otherwise, it's, as an integrator and a small business for now 25 years I've been in business, cash flow is a tough thing. It's hard to say, oh, prepare for this and, stick a wad of cash somewhere. I've been trying to do that for 25 years. So, it's great to think that. And I think a lot of people nowadays conflate small business with all business. So you hear these negative stories online or on the news or whatnot about what big businesses are doing to their employees. And, we're fighting, and I know most small business owners like myself are fighting super hard to keep our employees paid, working if they want to, and somewhat productive during this downtime now. And I think it's one of the most important things that small business owners are dealing with right now is dealing with our employees and how do we continue to help them get through this, as well as our businesses, because if we aren't here at the outcome of this, those employees are out of luck as well. And we'll have a larger market than we've ever had, presumably, looking for jobs coming out of this. So, and there'll be a lack of jobs. And I've already seen several restaurants and businesses here shut down permanently just after the short shutdown we've had already. So, there will be businesses going out of business and there will be a lack of jobs and then more people looking for jobs. So I think that's a big part of what we're trying to do is just manage that cash flow enough so we can keep our employees working or paid if they're home and, keep the productivity going as well as we can. We've got some government clients. We've got some commercial clients where their businesses are basically shut down, but it's a great time for us to go in there and do stuff that they've been planning for a while but didn't want to do because they had to shut it down. Mm-hmm. Well, now that's automatically come up. These places are relatively clean because no one's been in there for weeks. So, it's actually a good environment to work in. So it's I think innovating, watching your cash flow, communication, all that is important right now.
Yeah, very good. Chad, as a, I'm going to make you pull on your, hey, I work at Josh AI manufacturer hat for a minute. When you see this and when you see, what everyone's talking about, and he's even got the hat, that's perfect. When you see this, looking at it from that manufacturer side, is this something that you want to address in a temporary situation? Is this strictly just a temporary situation, or should this start to lean towards future changes down the road to, Dan's point and Jamie's point of maybe integrators need to start taking more money up front? You don't buy really anything anymore without paying for that thing that you're ordering in. Almost nobody does that except for our channel. It's such a different thing. Is that something that, from the manufacturer side that you'll see that start to occur where they you change your model a little bit, or is it just going to be a temporary blip till we're out of this and then back to business as normal?
I think Josh is a little bit, I think there's a lot of ways to unpack that question because Josh being traditionally we're a software company, we make a couple pieces of hardware. So that aspect of it is a little bit different. I think when you look at it in terms of the integrator side, you have seen a large shift, and really since, to Dan's point, back to 2007, 2008, a lot of integrators have started taking a lot more money up front, to the point that that final payment ends up being at 10%. So whereas if you just lose out on that part of it for some details, that they're still able to have their operating capital and have the product paid for. This time, I think that things are a little bit different in that we don't know when this is going to really, if this is a short-term situation, is this a long-term? But one thing I've noticed is how different this seems to be from market to market on whether or not they've really shut down and really sequestered everyone at home. And then the bigger question is, how does that affect pipeline? And how do you keep that pipeline going? And then what are you doing in order to prepare yourself for when we come out of this in the future? But, to get back to the point of your question, for us, I think that some manufacturers have started. I mean, we do ever operate on credit card, but right now in this temporary time, we're being more flexible. If someone has a lot of product projects, they're coming at us, they can come to us and ask us about that. And I think some other manufacturers have even been leaning towards that as well. To the point of the discussion earlier about with Almo, it's what we're seeing now is, I think, good partners are being receptive to being good partners and trying to help get the small businesses of America out of this. And I think it's a scary time for that. And I think it needs to get back to really how we plan on how we're going to, what can we do during this downtime in order to be a better company when we come out? What are the things that we're missing to make us more efficient that we didn't really have time to address before? But that said, in some of these markets, some of the integrators we speak to on a week-to-week basis, or even day-to-day, they are cranking along so busy right now that they're still not seeing any signs of slowdown in the markets that haven't been kind of sequestered to stay at home.
Yeah. And I think we're pretty lucky at the moment as well. Like, we're pretty busy. The challenge is that we are under a statewide stay-at-home order, so there's restrictions, and then there's also the impression of us being out in the world doing work. Some clients want us there, some don't. Some employees feel comfortable with it, some don't. We can take every protective measure that we have, but it still doesn't change the comfort factor. Getting back to the dollars and cents of it all, though, we read a great book at one point in our company's history called Profit First. And for those integrators who are listening, it's a fantastic read that helps you understand how to manage that cash flow better. Because one of the things I've seen in other industries, and we certainly experienced it as a young company, you get paid a lot of money up front potentially, and you've got all this cash. And so everything looks like you've got, an endless bank account to order everything you need. And why not go ahead and do that extra marketing spend? And why not go out once or twice, or take your team out 3 or 4 extra times, because it looks like you've got a lot of money to burn, but not necessarily. So what that book kind of helped outline is like, oh yeah, let's get that money in, that big chunk of cash, but let's divvy it up right away first. Let's put our, the cost of the goods and the payables here. Let's put our profit in a separate bank account and keep that over there so we don't even want to spend it. We've been doing that for a while, and managing it through this thing is really helping quite a bit. Getting back to the point of keeping as little on the table as possible at the end, that's been preached in a lot of the CEDIA courses that I've taken over time, to keep that last 5% if you can at the very end instead of 10 or 20 or 50. That way you collect your profit along the way, and you're only dangling out there a tiny bit at the end.
Hey, thanks for watching the first segment of this week's episode. To catch the entire show, please click the link below or visit AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv.